Hi, I'm Adam Shilcock, and I'm a partner manager here at Huntress. We work very closely with Urban Network to provide 24/7 advanced threat detection and response capabilities. In this video, I want to talk about phishing. Phishing is a social engineering tactic used by threat actors to manipulate people into giving away sensitive information, such as passwords or credit card information, or to actually act on behalf of the threat actor by downloading malicious payloads or other forms of malware. It's one of the most widely used tactic to gain initial access into your IT environment, and something that's really important to be aware of and understand how to combat. Now, we can all probably think of that stereotypical phishing email in our inbox now. It's a poorly constructed email, not addressed to anyone specific, probably laden with bad spelling mistakes, and ultimately a message of huge financial reward if you were to take action now or click this certain link. But in reality, the phishing landscape is not quite like that. Ultimately, these attacks are being very, very successful at manipulating users. Still, the number one way that attackers are using to gain access to your systems. So therefore, these phishing attacks can't be that easy to identify anymore. And these attacks are constantly evolving. The security tools that we have in place are doing a very good job at stopping these phishing emails coming into your mailbox in the first place. So hackers, they're having to get smarter in how they approach these kinds of scams. They're having to be a lot more hyper targeted towards individuals in the organization that are either more vulnerable or potentially have higher access to systems and data. And ultimately, they're using new tactics and techniques to bypass these security tools and get into your inbox. And if we take a look at some examples of some phishing templates that are actually used out there in the world today by threat actors, you'll see that if they are successful at getting into your email inbox, these ones are going to be very, very difficult to decipher whether they're actually legitimate or not. If you're not paying attention or if you're in a rush, you can quite clearly see why people are actually falling for these attacks and giving away sensitive information, credentials, or the like. And ultimately, the statistics support this as well. Phishing attacks is the most common cause of cybersecurity incidents globally. It's only rising as a tactic that is being used. So we as users are falling for these types of attacks more and more so. It doesn't matter what size organization you are either. Ultimately, here is an example of cyber attacks hitting over a third of English schools. And again, just highlighting there that phishing attacks were the most common cause of those cybersecurity incidents, with 23% of schools and colleges experiencing that. Phishing is more of a means to an end, though. It's not the ultimate goal. In some cases, it is. The attackers will just try and steal credentials and sell those on into the dark web. Well, more often than not, what they're trying to do is carry out a further attack on your organization. Business email compromise is another form of social engineering tactics and techniques that threat actors will use to get users to send large sums of money to a fraudulent account or a threat actor organization. It's something that, over the last decade has cost organizations globally over $55 billion, and certainly is one of the more financially devastating attacks that can happen on your organization. So protecting things like your Microsoft 365 environment becomes very, very important. BEC, in terms of an attack method, has become an attacker favorite purely for that reason as well. Just how financially rewarding it is to attackers to carry out. We're seeing this more and more now. This kind of data is from our S&B threat report that we released last year, and we anticipate that in 2024, this is going to be one of our largest forms of attacks that we've detected and had to respond to as well. So how do we fight back? Well, ultimately, there's not one solution that will allow us to combat phishing entirely and the subsequent attacks that will take place after a successful phishing attempt. Ultimately, it starts with user training. This is a fundamental aspect of your security posture and your security stack, as it were. We have to make sure that users become the first line of defense in stopping these phishing attacks happening in the first place. The better we can train users to actually identify phishing emails, report them, we can get better as organizations in stopping these attacks from happening in the first place. Of course, we need things like email filtering tools, MFA, and other authentication hardening techniques, as well as conditional access policies to stop these threats coming into your inboxes in the first place. But also, when things do get past, we need to have threat detection and response as well to quickly identify if an attacker is in your environment. I've got a separate video all about what we can do on that front. And of course, when there is a breach, ultimately there will be some damage. And so some form of backup and recovery process has to take place as well. So we need to take a holistic approach to our security, make sure that we've got layers at different elements of a potential attack chain. And ultimately, hunters can help with some of these things like user training and the threat detection and response. But Urban Network will work with you to make sure that you've got areas of protection in all aspects of these types of boxes and at all aspects of your environment to make sure that your risk is heavily reduced. I hope that was informative. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back again another time.